and meet the global leaders. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session, Meet the Global Leaders. It is an initiative of School of Entrepreneurship Development, and we usually invite the leaders and the entrepreneurs of the world who are currently leading so many people. And today we are going to listen from Nowshin Mehzabin ma'am, who is a young leader of Women Deliver. So, ma'am, today I've got many questions as I've got a chance to ask so many questions from you. So, first of all, I just want you to introduce yourself first, as our audience don't know much about you.
Thank you so much, Anisha. It's such a pleasure to be here. But as Anisha already mentioned, my name is Nowshin. I'm born and raised in Bangladesh. I'm currently based in Toronto, Canada, where I'm working in the areas of equality, religious freedom, minority rights, policy, accessibility, human rights law, at Diversity Institute, which is a part of Toronto Metropolitan University. Majority of my life has been in Bangladesh. I have moved to Canada a few years ago, where I came for my master's at University of Toronto at Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy. Prior to that, all my experiences have been in Bangladesh. I volunteered in Bangladesh, worked in Bangladesh. So yeah, really excited to be here today and looking forward to getting more questions from you on the show. You're muted. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Actually, today I'm really excited because I'm also planning to be an entrepreneur as my passion, but I didn't start it yet. So you can say that I am a starter. So in this starting point, I think that I really need to speak with all of the leaders. I mean, as much as I can, to know their life experiences and their struggles, so that I can learn from them. Okay, so let's move to the next question. And the next question is that did you do any kind of work while you studied in university, like in Bangladesh? And you also did your master's from Canada, right? So, what kind of things you did that make you to become a leader, an entrepreneur? Like, I want to know that kind of all the things, all the informations.
Yeah, um, it's. I think this is going to be the majority part of our discussion today because I think in my student life, especially during my undergraduate life in Bangladesh, I've just been a volunteer. I studied less, volunteered more, and I think that sort of reshaped my identity, not in terms of just my profession, but also me as a person. So I if I go back to the kickstart, I think it was just a very random calling. Someone just called me one day and said, "Hey, do you want to be an activist, a youth activist for ActionAid Bangladesh?" And I had no idea. I was just in my first year of my undergraduate. I was still learning about the university. I went to North South University, and I said, "Okay, fine. I'll just go to one of these meetings." And that was my first footing to learning about this whole world of development, learning about this whole world of equity, rights, UN, and all that have been such a big part of my life now. It's been almost 10 years since that day. So yeah, I just went to one of these meetings and I was taken by ActionAid Bangladesh as a youth activist. And that's where it kicked off. And what an amazing journey it has been for me. It has shaped me as a person. The next thing I did, I remember I went to a youth consultation by UNDP representing ActionAid Bangladesh. And then and my name was everywhere, and I didn't know that I was actually giving input for the millennium development goals. They were drafting the SDG back at that time. It was a tremendous journey, and then it just kept going on, and I was volunteering. I was moving to several UN agencies, and then I had the opportunity to go into Europe, in Asian countries to do campaigns for Action Aid for UN. And those are all volunteer experiences. And at one point I kept asking myself, why am I doing this for free? I mean, technically it was not free. My trips are being funded. I was being invited. I shared stages with amazing people, with great entrepreneurs now, a lot of them my friends now. But yeah, I think that's where my footing started, as a volunteer. And that's, I think, everything I've landed in my life up until today was because of that one small step and that one small meeting I went to.
Okay, so as you said that you worked for SDGs, right? So why didn't you choose to work for SDGs like for your lifetime?
Yeah. Um, So, going back to the introduction of myself, I was actually a finance student back in undergraduate.
Finance.
Yeah, I had no interest about, not interest. I was not exposed to development, UN, diplomacy, like all these big words that we use in public policy or in the whole development world and whole human rights world. So I eventually worked for a bank when I graduated. So I started off, as a banker at HSBC. I was doing very well. I loved my job. My bosses loved me. It was an amazing experience. But I was not getting that feel of heart because all these volunteer experiences that I was doing when I was a student kept calling me back. And then I said this was time for me to do something because I was just learning about the SDG. I mean, at that time, the Millennium Development Goals were turning into SDGs. So it was a good transformation. And I was very fortunate to be able to work with such great nonprofits and such great, UN agencies, even in Bangladesh, to be able to be educated so much on these issues, right? So, and then you find your calling. And then, so in 2014, I did a competition called Telener Youth Summit. And that was my calling to actually speak my heart out. And I wanted to speak about gender equality. And up until that day, I didn't know that. I mean, the first day that I had pitched it is actually the day I realized that this is something that really bothered me all these days, but I just never got to talk about it. So that's when my entrepreneurship footing started. And yeah, and then I was just going on, and this was a part of SDG that I really focused, throughout my undergraduate life, throughout my entrepreneurship journey, which I like to call myself a failed entrepreneur. But yeah, that's where the footing started. So I think, like, once again, like the small footing you set in a small room kind of gives you this whole path of where you just need to be in the later state of life.
Well, I think that you're still connected with SDGs because what you are doing now, it's part of a goal of SDGs. For example, you're working for equity, right?
Yeah.
So it is a little bit part of SDGs. There are 17 goals. So yeah. So do you believe in equality or equity?
It's an interesting question. I believe in both. Equality is very important, especially, I mean, you know, for a lot of us, you can say that, oh, equality is so important, back in Southeast Asia, in the part of the world that we come from. But after coming to this part of the world officially, although I worked in Europe before, but I just feel that equality is so important and the words are so tied up because it's not just gender equality, it's about the fight of equality against fairness, against freedom, right? Against human rights violation. So it's not just men and women. It's about so many people who could need support. So I would say I'm a big firm supporter of both. Sorry to disappoint you. I can't differentiate. I love both. I want to work in both.
Okay, so I want to share my perspective that I don't know whether it's wrong or right, but the thing is, I mostly believe in equity. more than equality, because I think that we are women, and as you know that for human rights we have our extra, women human rights only for women. So it means that we are not getting the same wages or same salaries where we are working as men are paid. But the thing is, for example, in Bangladesh Parliament, we have got like the women got 15 seats, right? So it's like equity, not equality, because we are not getting the equal rights, but something is for us that is fixed, so that is equity, right? So I think that for women, especially for the Southeast Asia, so for women, equity is much better than equality, because we are not getting the all of the sources and quality education. So everyone should, focus on us, I think that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you say it. And I was also very limited to the idea of gender equality and equity, right, all my life. But as I started working more into more broader context, I worked for the UN headquarters last year, sorry, the year before, and then, right now I'm working in Canada. The concept is not just men and women anymore, right? Even in Bangladesh, you see, there's so many violations against the indigenous groups, right? There's so many violations against religious minorities. There's so much violation in this part of the world. We all know that George Floyd story, right? So it's anti-black racism. It's Asian hatred. So I think, yeah, it's not just gender equality, but obviously, yes, there has been a historic discrimination for men and women in terms of wages and economic empowerment and all that. But I just think it's all aspect of the not so privileged group that we should, also emphasize on.
So another question just raised in my hand, that is, you're working for minorities groups and also the religious issues in Canada. Why not in Bangladesh? Because in Bangladesh, there are so many minority people and indigenous people who are minority in population and also in villages number. So why not in Bangladesh?
So I was working in Bangladesh all my life. Technically, majority of my experience is in Bangladesh, and I also did work with minority groups. I have had another failed venture. So I had this group of transgender people. So I used to work with them too. So those were also a minority group, right? So I think this is a very important question that you asked, because I think this is also a very popular, interesting question, right? For why is everyone moving to Canada? Why is everyone moving abroad? I know it's a very popular question, but I think that exposure is so important, and I can't emphasize on how much exposure gives you to reshape your own country. Um, when I worked in Bangladesh, so my last job in Bangladesh was with BRAC, and I actually worked in around 500 slums across the country. And I used to go to the slums. I used to go to, Rohingya camps, and that's what you call a field operation. So I think what I learned there was tremendous. Straight up moved to that, I worked for UN headquarters in Geneva. It's a completely different experience. It was a headquarter experience. It was super diplomatic, a lot of policy level. And then I moved to Canada, where it's a very donor focused, also action focused region, I would say. A lot of things to do here, plus a lot of funding from this part of the world also goes to Asia, right? So I think that's why it's so important to have the global exposure. So when I am back in Bangladesh, I know how the headquarter works. I know how the funding region works, and how just the sweet harmony of all these aspects come into a nice form for our country, right?
So, are you planning to come back to Bangladesh, like with all your experiences and with all your, you know, how to say? I mean, you are already experienced that you can use all of your knowledge developing our country and developing the the mind of the people of Bangladesh. So what do you think about that? Will you come as an entrepreneur or as a leader, or you can come both?
I think you already know the answer. The answer is yes, of course. Um, so I think what's more important to understand, especially and living in 2023, is you know your roots, but you are a global citizen, right? So wherever you will be, your roots will be in you. And I honestly feel so privileged have to have spent the majority of my life in Bangladesh, right? So I know how it works in Bangladesh. I know the game plan in Bangladesh. I've been on and off out of the loop, but I know for a fact if I ever have a big game plan, it will only be in Bangladesh. Hopefully,
Yes, hopefully. We will be waiting for you.
yes.
Okay, so let's go. Let's move to the next question because I just have so many questions, so I should not waste my time.
Perfect.
So my next question is: how did your earlier career choices lead you to where you are now?
Yeah. I think I've answered a lot of it already. Um, so I did a lot of volunteer stuff and I questioned myself, like I said, like, oh, I'm not getting paid. Is it worth it? I'm going to all these big conferences, I'm winning these competitions, getting all this recognition. I'm not getting any money out of it. So, like everyone else, I ended up taking a finance sector job. I worked in a bank, which I totally loved. But like you said, the calling, right? And the calling entirely came from these whole experiences of working as a youth activist. I remember when I was back in university, I only used to have classes 2 days a week from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then from Boshundhara, I was studying in North South, I was going to Agargaon to IDB Bhavan to work at UN offices. And I would go all the way. On the weekends, I was volunteering. I was going to villages, I was going to slums, I was getting in all these, activist mood ready. So I think I had an amazing footing to this whole world of youth activism, right? And this whole world of entrepreneurship. When I won the Culinary Youth Summit, and then I was firm that okay, gender is something I want to do. And if you even ask me today, it's been 9 years and I still want to do gender today because that's my passion. And then I came into an entrepreneur spirit. So I would do classes and then I would go to all these tech companies. I would go to Ministry of Youth. I would go to Ministry of Women. I would go to Grameen Phone, give me some funding. I want to launch my health plan. I want to do my app. And I was meeting all these entrepreneurs to actually get my own helpline launched back at that time. So that sort of shaped to what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do equity, equality, gender, minority rights. So I think that's where I am today, and I haven't gone back to the corporate sector in a while. I'm not sure if I will. I might, but I'm not a very financially driven person. I'm a very passion driven. I'm a very um, output driven person. So I like to see the impact I create more. So I think thanks to all these decisions of volunteering and going on these conferences, I'm just where I am today.
Okay, so what do you think that what will happen to entrepreneurship in the next 5 to 10 years?
Um, I said this 5 years ago. I even believe in it today that what's really going to happen in the field of entrepreneurship, especially in Bangladesh, is tech. A good chance for tech to merge in even more. It already has so much. And I want to take this opportunity to say that there's not only a lot of successful entrepreneurship, but there has been a lot of unsuccessful ventures that we also learn from. Um, and most of them have come through tech because this was a trend, growing up like for the last decade in Bangladesh. So I see that I think there's more than 70% internet penetration now in Bangladesh. So a lot of tech-based platforms are utilizing it. There's been a lot of new government policies surrounding tech. I think HUI, Startup Bangladesh, they're doing amazing job, and there has been new policies like ICT policies, youth policies, and that's what I'll also bring the Generation Plan, which came in 2018. So I think a big sector for tech, and I'll speak from the enterprise point of view, is tech is something we really need to rely on, and I'm bringing gender equality here, gender equity here, which is we really need to focus on this, women and girls and youth in the low income urban settlements, in the rural areas, right? We need to push them to use youth because our country is very rich in terms of agriculture, and there has been a lot of big revolution in terms of entrepreneurship in that sector. I'm a big fan of iPharma. I'm a big fan of Chowdhury, and they're doing amazing job. And all their ventures have great potential of utilizing our women population as well. So I think for me, my agenda could be very personal, but I think it could be a field for tech and women.
Okay, I think that's a lot. Okay, for me, I personally think that now in Bangladesh, like a lot of educated people, they are just becoming an entrepreneur and doing like farm works. Like it can be an agro or like or fruit farm or vegetable farms or animal farms, and they're getting a lot and they're getting benefits. So I think that after getting a degree, which is like you know it just it's just a degree, just it will just come before my name. But what we actually do is something else. For example, you studied in finance, right? But you're doing another thing. Though those are related, but I think that, I mean, do you think that is it really necessary to work in that sector, in which sector you already studied?
Um, Obviously not, because I didn't pursue what I studied in undergrad, but I think I'm close to pursuing what I did for my master's. But I did most of my development work before I started my master's. And let me tell you, while it's not important, education is also very vital. So I was working in the development sector before I started my master's in global affairs and public policy, which is a very, and my major was in human rights and global justice. So I can't even emphasize to tell you where my knowledge level and where my exposure went after I was educating myself with all these things that I never academically studied, right? Whereas I had a lived work experience of around 7 years, including my whole undergrad period before I went into my master's. But you should never stop being a student, let me tell you, because whether it's in a classroom setting or whether it's in I don't know, informal setting, I think education is very important to nurture. And I think, you know, the opportunities these days are great. You don't really have to rely on masters or just get a degree. There's so many short courses on LinkedIn, right? On Google, you can sign up and you can do it. So, whereas I'm a firm believer of experience and not, like sticking to your degree, but I also believe knowledge is power.
Okay, so another question. How did you like gain your knowledge about human rights and about the minorities, about the religious issues? Did you do any kind of courses like outside of your academic studies?
Yes. Yes. So I my major was on human rights and global justice. So obviously I studied corruption, I studied how governments work, I studied how um, funding channels from this part of the world to the underprivileged part of the world. But other than that, I think what really helped me is you just need to be an aware global citizen, right? You need to get subscriptions. You need to know what's happening in the world. You need to be very, very aware and very, very exposed to what's happening and be involved with organizations. And I think when we're young, and when I was younger, I was doing a lot more things than I'm doing right now. Um, I don't think I've sat down any weekend when I was back in Bangladesh because I was volunteering. I was volunteering for ActionAid. I was volunteering for UN, and then I joined Junior Chamber International. I was doing KCI. I loved it. More than in my friend group, more than finding me in a coffee shop, probably find me doing these things because I love talking to people. I love networking, and I love knowing. So I was doing this. I think I have more than 50 workshop certificates that I really don't need because you just know at one point. But initially, you go for certificates, you just want to know, and then it just becomes like an addiction. So, yes, that's very important to network, to know more people, and to actually hear from them what they're doing, right? And just learn stuff.
Okay, so do you think that the university students or any students should go for volunteering like for everything, like for example we have so many clubs in our universities, so they arrange so many events, so in that event the universities recruit that so many we need so many volunteers. But the thing is that now what students do, what I did last year is like I just applied for all the volunteers, and I worked as a volunteer, but ultimately I somehow realized that doing volunteering is good, it's fantastic, but there is something, that work is not like in my passion, and I'm not interested to doing that work only because of the the experience that I can tell that yeah I did volunteering, only because of that title that I want to add in my CV. So I just went for so many volunteering works, but I think that it is not necessary. So I mean, in your perspective, what do you think the students should go or not?
Um, well, in my perspective, I am the complete opposite. Um, I would say, and I'm proud to say this, especially now in 2023, because I started volunteering when I was much younger, in 2013, 2012 actually. It's very important to believe your passion. You should be a volunteer for your own development. I mean, I learned public speaking, I learned debate through volunteering, right? And I think these are very important skills to have. You need to have good negotiation skills, you need to have good public speaking skills, right? As you grow up, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're working somewhere. Um, but I don't think I've ever done anything in terms of, like a financial incentive or what would happen during our time is that because there were only like a very few like young leaders or, youth advocacy workers, they would pick us and then they would send us abroad to all these campaigns and conferences. And sometimes you will know people's intention behind it. I knew some people who just just would just enjoy this whole fame, the whole fame game, and this whole thing, but maybe their heart was somewhere else, and they ended up pursuing completely different path. But I don't think I was one of them. I genuinely cared about what I still cared about what I cared about 10 years ago, right? So, and there have been many, many instances where I've been to places and I've volunteered and I've never posted about it. I never uploaded a photo of the certificate or I just never mentioned it on my profile because, I really enjoy doing it. But then again, that's just me. I love doing it, but I think not just in terms of putting it on your resume or LinkedIn or just on your social media to look cool. I think we are global citizens and we are humans, and it doesn't really have to be a development focused event. You should volunteer just for the sake of humanity. I like this one line from Jesse. I forgot it was the mission or the vision, and that line is, and humanity is the best art of life, best work of life. And I feel like that has been my motive. And if you can go volunteer, um, put or don't put it on your CV, but take this chance, take this opportunity. It might be your calling and might land you somewhere like it did for me.
Okay, so did you get any, biggest lesson when you did something, but after doing that thing, you thought that that was wrong, and you got a biggest lesson? So, is did happen to you as well?
Yeah, as I mentioned when we started, I call myself a failed entrepreneur because I was a very young entrepreneur. So my entrepreneur spirit came when I was in my second year of undergrad, and I got a lot of attention when I won culinary yourself. I had my app designed, I had my helpline designed, but the problem is I was very young. I had a long road to finish. I had to finish my school. I had to finish those finance courses. I had to get a job like everyone else. And I think two mistakes here. One is I did not pursue it. I mean, I did pursue it at later part of my life, but I didn't pursue it right then when I actually had a good opportunity and less competition, because when I did it later there were already so many people doing the same thing, right? Because if you don't do it, someone else will. So I think that would be my biggest suggestion, recommendation when it comes to you know being having a good lesson. And other than that, I would say that I had a lot of mentors. I did not have one specific mentor who really, really, really took my idea. So that's also another lesson. And the biggest lesson is, um, don't stop pushing it. Just do it.
Okay, so how did you start it, as an entrepreneur?
Um, just an idea. I had, like I said before, I pitched it to Teleanor. I didn't even know. I knew I was passionate about it, but I didn't even know that, oh, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I want to do it. So just for heads up, my helpline was active for a while. It was working, but then it had a lot of bugs, and then which is because I'm not an engineer, so I was not doing the coding and stuff. So it's not active right now. So that's why I call myself a failed entrepreneur. But I really enjoyed being the thrill is amazing, right? When you are doing something on your own. So yeah, and then I think once you get the footing, it's just a path forward. For some, it's a very clear path. For some, it's a very bumpy path. For me, it was a very young path because I was so young when I first started doing it. Um, yeah. So, and when you want to do something good, and when you have an idea that creates an impact, whether it's a financial impact or whether it's a social impact, trust me, people will help you. And there is a popular saying that birds of same feather flock together, and you eventually find yourself among that group just discussing the same things. So I think, yeah, your energy really matters, and then you just need those right people to be, surrounding you.
Okay, so when you got your idea, so you shared to everyone, like at least to your close friends. Did they supported you with the idea?
I did not share with them.
With anyone? You
No,
didn't share with
I
anyone?
didn't know. I didn't know. I was so passionate about it until I pitched it. Um, I didn't even have a solid idea. And as I kept on pushing, going forward in the competition, this round, so first I was like university champion, then I was something else, top 10, and then I was top three, then I was the top. So as
Yeah.
you go through every phase, like an entrepreneur's journey is amazing. You go through this whole incubation period, right? And your idea keeps on changing, modifying, people keep adding it, people keep taking away from it. So I did not share this with anyone. I just randomly, I was working in the university, I saw a banner of Grameenphone promoting Telener Youth Summit, and I was like, oh, I should go. I didn't even know it was a big deal. Oh, and the best part, I think something that links to your previous question, I didn't even know that if I won this competition, I get to go to Oslo and I get to present it to the Nobel Peace Prize Committee in Oslo. I had no idea, I swear. And then it was only after I became top 10, and then they were giving this, um, these medals or like pathway to Oslo. And I was like, oh, really? I just wanted to talk about what I'm passionate about. And, I just wanted to talk about what I want to do. And then, yeah, I just ended up on a much bigger stage, right? I was in the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony because of it. So I had no idea. I didn't share with anyone. I was just passionate about it. And I just went and passionately pitched it.
Okay, so most of the time I saw that most of the entrepreneurs who came up with their interesting ideas, they become businessmen. So why didn't you become a businessman?
Um, I think it's also from my experiences of failed venture. So, like I said, what happened is I got this whole idea of my venture when I was very young. And as a young person, it was very difficult for me to scale it on a very big scale. Um, I want to be an entrepreneur even now, even on a much bigger scale. But I think for me, what's important is education is very important. And like again I said, it's so important, I can't emphasize enough. And experience is even more important. Like I mentioned, right, the experiences of working in field, in a headquarters setting, in a donor funded funding setting, and more than that, as you move through all these spaces and you just learn more. When I worked in HSBC, I learned one type of technology. When I worked in Bragg, it was completely different technology, right? It was social side technology. And there is organization structure, there are people, and then as you go through all these conferences, workshops, meetings, you meet people, and then you gather like small experiences, and you gather small things. I gathered a lot of experiences from my friends who are now really big entrepreneurs, and I'm so proud of them because they've achieved it so early. But I think for me, it's for me to be a full-time entrepreneur, it's not my calling yet, because I think for what I want to do, these small experiences of moving to organizations, of moving into sectors, is just so important.
Okay, so as you said that you were so young when you interested in entrepreneurship, and just my question is, why didn't you go to the elders to get help? Because you were so young. So you could get help from the elders, and they could help you with your ideas, implementing them.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before, I got a lot of help. I got more help, than I expected, and I'm so lucky for that. But I think also it's the stage of life you're in. So I was in my second year of university, right? And then I am not as brave as Bill Gates to be a dropout. Maybe then I could have my own Microsoft by today. But just joking. So I knew like the road ahead of me. So at one point, it becomes an opportunity cost, right? My friends were very successful entrepreneurs today. One of them is doing very well, Riyasat. He has Shuttle. Then, I shared the stage with Ayman Sadiq, and he has 10 minute school. They're doing great jobs because they took the time to implement. But I think things came to me so early, and for me, my first footing was to, okay, I need to finish my degree. And then that was a trap, because when you finish your degree and then like, okay, now I need to get a job. I need to win all these management training positions. I need to get that fancy um, job title, right? So I think people's journey are different. Sometimes you get support, but I believe that there is a good timing for everything. And for me, it just wasn't my time back at that time.
Okay, so we address you a young leader of Women Deliver. So, what is actually the Young Deliver? Can you explain it a bit more about it so that
Women
our audience?
Deliver.
Yeah.
Okay. So Women Deliver is actually world's largest organization that's been working for women's and adolescents rights and activities. I'll actually be in Rwanda, Kigali next month to speak at the global conference. So Women Deliver hosts a global conference every 4 years, and it's the world's largest conference on women. So anything women and girls rights, it's all there. Around like a few thousand organizations participate. The last one I participated was in 2016 in Denmark, and I met all the kings and queens, Kofi Annan's family, Dr. Muhammad Yunus, everyone was there. So Women Deliver is a US based organization, but they pick young leaders every couple of years. So I'm one of the 300 young global leaders who have been recognized for their work in the sector of women and gender equality and equity. So Women Deliver is also a great platform. You asked me about if I got any education other than my my degrees. So I did. So Women Deliver has something called Digital University. So I actually had to take a lot of courses, a lot of modules to learn about specific things, whereas some modules were about, the tech focused sectors of social enterprise. One was about sexual and reproductive health and rights of women. So this was a complete separate university I've done outside my two university degrees that I've done. So Women Deliver, yes, it's a very youth focused. They support youth a lot, but are they are women and girls centric organization doing so much great work around the world.
Okay, so in your LinkedIn account, I saw that in the bio you wrote that you are very passionate and ambitious about, solving the pressing problems of the world. So, in your perspective, what do you think that right now, currently, what is the biggest pressing issue in the world?
Ah, I think this is the most difficult questions you'll ask me, because there are so many problems, but what do I care about the most? What's the biggest problem in my eyes is that women are still not there. For me, that's the biggest, that's the most pressing problem, the most pressing issue, that so much has been done, so much policies have been done. We have female presidents, we have female leads leading big organizations. A lot of UN agencies are led by women. Countries are being led by presidents. Our own prime minister is women, but something is missing. So for me, if you ask me personally, I don't know if it's the biggest problem for the world. I think honestly, the biggest problem for the world is climate change because we are way, way behind of, I don't know when that ship is going to sink, but that's obviously existential crisis. I think is climate change, but also for me personally, I think apart from all the policies, women are just still not there at their full potential. That's my problem.
Okay, so what do you think that the young leaders and the young entrepreneurs who will become entrepreneurs in the future, what should they learn first, or what kind of skills they need?
Um, Firstly, I would start by saying is that they need to find their own calling. Not everyone needs to care about gender equality. You can care about gaming, for example, and you can do something really great out of it. So the footstep starts with find your own calling. And number two, very very important, don't be afraid. From my experience so far and from what I've learned and what I've preached and what I've seen is that you have your degree and then you have your hard skills, but your interpersonal skills matter the most. And that's when I'll again bring volunteerism. When you're young, when you're especially in high school, undergrad, go do that MUN, go do that debate championship, right? Build that skill, be a public speaker. Be fearless so that when you actually have your own platform, you're not afraid to speak. And get a mentor. That's also a part of growing interpersonal skill. Now, your mentor can be Elon Musk, who you follow on social media and see all these cool cars coming and this cool tech coming. But your mentor can also be, I don't know, your uncle, someone who really inspires you and someone who's actually accessible, right? So you could follow all the great big entrepreneurs that you might not end up talking to, but you can talk to your own mentor and push your agenda. So yeah, and also be just aware of how the world is going to be very very exposed because we are global citizens. We can't be based in Bangladesh, or we can't be based in North America anymore. We need to know about the world. Get subscription, subscribe to New York Times, subscribe to Financial Times, right? Follow BBC. It sounds very tedious, but this is, you need to just be aware of what's going on in the world. And not just follow, have your own voice. When you see CNN reporting something wrong, we should be the one as young people to say, hey, that's wrong. I don't agree with it. You know, Russia, Ukraine has problem. Oh, is Zelensky always right? Just because, the country is in attack. So always have your own voice, always have your own power, grow that interpersonal skill. And trust me, that takes you to a greater level of professional landing. That makes you a leader. So I think whether it's volunteering or your work or lived experiences, just be exposed and just talk, network, meet more people, know more.
But I want to share something that in my life, what I experienced that, as you said that you should raise your own voice. So here, the problem I can see is now in this generation, like all of the people, all of the students have their own perspective, their own opinion, and they want to raise their voices. So what happens here is, suppose I'm in the classroom and our professors or teachers gave us an issue to talk about it. But I said something, my friend said something, and what happened here is like there are so many perspectives and opinions, but they try to persuade others that I am right. You are wrong. This is totally wrong, right? Because there can be wrong things and right things. Maybe your opinion is wrong to another person. But what nowadays, what students do is they just try to persuade that this is my opinion, this is my perspective. You cannot tell it that this is wrong. So this happens.
I think that's personal. And I think that's where exposure is so important because when you are only successful when you respect other people's opinion. And trust me, I have seen this. I'm still very young, I'm still not there. I'm a leader. I don't even know if I'm a leader. I have such a long way to go. But I think the bigger leaders I've met, the bigger entrepreneurs I've met, the people who have made biggest impacts are most humble and respectful person. I think for someone to go to a long way, I mean, there is a saying, if you want to walk fast, walk alone. If you want to walk farther, walk together. So I think mutual respect and having that whole sense of, team and just the responsibility on each other is so important. So I think it varies from person to person, but that's where exposure is so important, because you need to get out there, go sit in a room where the head of UN agencies are talking. You can't raise your voice on them, because as an 18-year-old, I feel like, oh my gosh, they know so much more than me and I can be disrespectful. So, and then you see how they talk, right? How they are working on their negotiation skills. So it's just so important. And then you learn back, and then you share that respect with your community. So I think, yeah, again, that's where volunteerism and exposure comes in.
So, do you have any mentor?
I have mentors, yes. They're very busy. They hardly talk to me. But I have also been very busy. I've streamlined through different phases in life in the last couple of years. I think I do have a mentor. When I was pursuing my entrepreneur journey, I had an amazing mentor. I think I had two amazing mentors. Really guided me, really supported me, and I'm not in touch with them for a few years. But I know if tomorrow I message them, they'll be there right away. But I'm grateful to all my mentors, and I think we just don't need to have one mentor. Your journey of life really changes, right? And now I need a different mentor who can navigate me through, let's say, the next 5 years of life. So I now have a different mentor, but I'm very grateful. So yes, I have a mentor, and everyone should have a mentor.
Okay, so my last but not the least question: do you have any kind of suggestions or advices for the young entrepreneurs or who just freshly started um, doing something on their own?
Yeah. Yeah, again, I'll speak from very personal experience, is that a lot of the times I was not aware of what is accessible to me. And that's where I can say, when I was, you know, just be more aware, because the government and even our countries, a lot of organizations as a whole have a lot of facilities, a lot of boot camps, a lot of spaces for young people to work in. When I worked in Bragg, one day we were doing just one workshop for Urban Innovation Challenge, and then I went to the A2I office, and I felt like I walked into Google office, because they actually had you know a hub for the startups to come and work, and it's for free, and I didn't know. So I think just looking out for all these resources what are available to you. There could be so many fundings that are available to you. So our internet is amazing now in Bangladesh, so just look out for what opportunities you have and what is accessible to you, because I think now these days there is something tailored for everyone. So just find your calling, see something is out there for you, go to
Okay, so thank you so much, Nowshin ma'am, for being with us today. So once again, I think I've learned so many things from you, and I'd like to stay connected with you. So in LinkedIn.
Yeah, for
So
sure. Thank you so much for inviting me. Nice talking to you.
okay, so our session ended here, and thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thanks.